My name is Rachel Kim. I'm 29 years old, and for the first time in my life, I thought I was finally safe. I live in Los Angeles now. I just bought my first home, nothing crazy, just a small two-bedroom in East Hollywood. But to me, it's everything. It's mine. Every inch of it was paid for with years of 2 a.m. Freelance gigs, skipped vacations, and enough instant ramen to feed a college dorm. From the outside, people probably think I've made it. Good job. Nice place, no roommates. But what they don't see is where I came from. See, I didn't grow up with much. When I was 12, my dad died, suddenly heart attack in his sleep. One day, I was helping him pack lunch for work. The next, I was standing in a too tight black dress at his funeral, wondering why everyone kept saying he's in a better place. That place sure as hell wasn't with me. After that, it was just me and my mom. For a little while, anyway. Her name's Angela. She was never really maternal. Cold might be too harsh of a word, but she definitely didn't know how to show love. Or maybe she just didn't want to. A year after Dad passed, she married a man named Ray. Ray was the kind of guy who made your skin crawl but never quite did anything you could report. You know, he didn't yell, he didn't hit. But he had this way of talking down to me, like I was a stray dog she brought home something to tolerate, not care for. Mom used to say, I can't stay poor forever, Rachel. And I guess Ray had money, not rich, just stable. Stable enough that she chose him over me. When I was 13, she packed up and left me with my grandparents in Bakersfield, without so much as a real goodbye. Just a half-hearted, this'll be better for both of us. She was gone for 2 years. 2 full years of silence. No birthdays, no calls, just a card once with $20 in it and a note that said, be good. When she finally came back, it wasn't to check in on me. It was to take me back to live with her and Ray. Like nothing had happened. Like I was some package that had just been on hold. I moved in with them at 15, and every day felt like I was walking on eggshells. Ray didn't want me there. That much was obvious. He made rules that didn't make sense, constantly monitored where I went, who I talked to, even what I ate. Mom never stepped in. She'd just shrug and say, he means well. He's just strict. But the truth, Ray didn't mean well. And my mom didn't care enough to see it. So I learned early if I wanted a life worth living, I'd have to build it myself. No safety net. No backup plan. Just grit grades and a long list of things I'd never ask for. I put myself through college, got into UX design, hustled through internships, contract work, 2 jobs at once. I worked while everyone else slept, cried into my keyboard more nights than I can count. But I did it. I got a full-time role at a top tech company, saved every dime, and after 6 years, I bought a house. A house that I swore no one could take from me. That's what makes what happened next so hard to talk about, because just when I thought I'd escaped my past, just when I started to believe I'd built a life no one could ruin, she came back, my mother, Angela, and this time she didn't come alone. She brought Ray, and they didn't come to say sorry. They came to take everything. I never thought I'd open my front door and see the people who hurt me the most, standing there smiling, like they were the ones who built my life. Like they had any right to be in it. I thought I was done with them. But I was wrong. And what happened over the next few weeks? It changed everything I thought I knew about family trust and what people are really capable of when they think you owe them something. Let me tell you what really happened. Because if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. It was a Friday afternoon. I remember because I'd just finished vacuuming the living room, finally, about to relax for the weekend. I was still in my old college sweatshirt, hair tied up, music playing low in the background, just one of those rare quiet moments where you feel content, safe. Then came the knock. Not a neighborly knock, not a package delivery knock, it was firm. Too firm. I paused, confused. I wasn't expecting anyone, no plans, no texts, no warning. I opened the door, and my heart dropped. It was my mom, and standing beside her was Ray. both dressed like they were heading to some church brunch, clean-pressed, way too polished for a surprise visit. My brain couldn't catch up. It had been over 4 years since I'd seen either of them. We hadn't spoken, not even a text. She smiled like we'd just run into each other at the grocery store. "Rachel," she said, all soft and warm like she was auditioning for Best Mom of the Year. "We need to talk. In the house of our daughter." Our daughter. My stomach turned. She said it so casually. Like this house, my house, was somehow part of their story. Like they had some claim over it, or over me. Ray didn't say a word at first. He just stepped inside like he owned the place, his eyes scanning everything. Kitchen, furniture, air purifier, even the wall art. Then he smirked. "Not bad," he said, nodding slowly. "Pretty impressive, for a little girl who grew up in a trailer park." The air went cold. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, still holding the door open, wondering if this was real life, or some twisted dream I hadn't woken up from. I wanted to slam the door. I really did, but part of me wanted to know why they were here. Why now? So I let them in. I wish I hadn't. They walked in like it was their place. Mom took off her coat and draped it over the back of the couch. Ray sat down and spread out like he'd just gotten home from work. I stayed standing, arms crossed, guard up. The whole time I could feel this knot building in my chest, that tight, sinking feeling you get when you know something bad's about to happen, but you don't know what shape it's going to take yet. Mom started with small talk, asked about my job, complimented the couch, pretended like we'd kept in touch all these years. I said nothing. Because what do you even say to the woman who walked out of your life and only came back now that you have something to offer? It didn't take long before the real reason showed up. She cleared her throat, crossed one leg over the other, and looked me dead in the eye. "I heard you bought a house," she said. Ray and I were proud. She said it like this was a team effort, like they'd been cheering me on from the sidelines when in reality they were the reason I had to work twice as hard in the first place. Then came the line that set the whole tone. "We think it's time to bring the family back together. You've got space, you've got stability. We could all use that right now." Ray leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "It'd be good for everyone," he added. "You've built something solid. It's only right to share it." That's when I realized they weren't just visiting. They were scouting, looking for their next opportunity, their next free ride, and in their eyes, I was it. I didn't respond right away. I think I was too shocked, too disgusted, too heartbroken maybe, because somewhere deep down there's always a part of you that wants to believe people can change, that they'll show up for the right reason someday. But this wasn't that. This was a performance, and I was the prize. My voice finally came back low and firm. "I don't think that's going to happen." Mom blinked like she didn't hear me right. Ray tilted his head and let out this little scoff like I was being difficult for no reason. Mom smiled again, but this time there was tension behind it. The smile didn't reach her eyes. "We just want to talk, Rachel. We're family. Family." That word again, thrown around like a weapon, and all I could think was, if this is what family looks like, then maybe I'm better off alone. They settled into my living room like they'd done it 100 times before. Ray stretched out on the couch legs, wide arms sprawled like he owned the place. Mom crossed her legs, her purse tucked beside her hands, folded neatly in her lap. For a moment, nobody spoke. I stayed standing. I wasn't offering drinks. I wasn't playing host. I just wanted them to say whatever they came here to say and leave. Then, of course, came the pity party. Ray started with the usual. Said he'd been out of work for almost a year now. Something about the job market being rigged and ageist. He blamed everything but himself. Then my mom chimed in, putting a hand to her chest real soft. "I've been having some health issues," she said. "It's been hard lately." I looked at her. She didn't look sick. No cast, no limp, no weight loss. No medications in sight. What kind of health issues? I asked. She hesitated, eyes darting. Just fatigue, stress. It's hard to explain. I've been meaning to get checked out, but you know how expensive that is. Translation, there was no diagnosis, no medical records, nothing but a vague story to make me feel guilty. I nodded slowly, saying nothing. Then she leaned forward, and that's when it dropped. We were thinking, she said that maybe it'd be good to get ahead of things. You know, protect the family. I raised an eyebrow. She smiled like she was saying something sweet. You already have the house. We thought maybe it would make sense to put our names on the deed too. Joint ownership. Just to keep things safe. In case something ever happens to you. I stared at her. Ray jumped in right after like it was all part of some rehearsed routine. It's about security, he said, keeping things in the family. I mean, we're all blood. I let that word sit for a second. Blood. That word meant something to them. To me, it meant years of abandonment, manipulation, and silence. I shook my head. No. Simple. Direct. Mom blinked. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, I repeated. You're not going on the deed. This is my house. I worked for this. Her smile started to slip. But we're not asking for much, she said. It would still be yours. We just want to make sure everything's protected. Legally. If anything were to happen, legally, I cut in. Nothing needs to happen legally unless someone tries to take what isn't theirs. Ray's voice dropped a little lower. We're not outsiders, Rachel. This is a family home. You wouldn't even be here if it weren't for your mother. I turned to him. You're right. I wouldn't be here if she hadn't left me with my grandparents and disappeared for 2 years. If she hadn't chosen you over me every single time. Silence. Then my mom's voice changed. It got colder. You know what I raised you. I kept a roof over your head. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You left me, Angela. You left me with people who barely knew how to care for themselves, let alone a grieving kid. Don't rewrite history. Her face flushed. You're being ungrateful, she snapped. We're just trying to make this right. Ray nodded. We're not asking for the whole thing. Just a part of it. I stepped back, jaw tight. You're not asking. You're demanding. And the answer is no. That's when he stood up. Ray, all 6 feet of smug entitlement. This isn't just your house, he said, voice rising. We're family. That means we all have a right to it. I walked straight to the front door and opened it wide. You need to leave. Mom stood too, her voice shaking with rage now. I gave you life. And this is how you repay me. I met her eyes. No, you gave me trauma, and I repaid it by surviving. Ray took a step forward, but I didn't move. I didn't flinch. Get out. He muttered something under his breath. Mom glared at me one last time, eyes full of fire. Then they walked out. No apologies. No goodbyes. Just the sound of my door slamming behind them. And for a second, I stood there in silence, heart-racing hands clenched. It should have been over. But something told me. It wasn't. Not even close. A few days passed after that ugly confrontation. I tried to move on to put it behind me. I went back to work, kept my head down, focused on projects, deadlines, anything that didn't involve my mother or Ray. But deep down, something didn't sit right. It felt unfinished, like the storm had passed but the clouds were still circling overhead. Then, one morning, I got an email. It was from my bank. The subject line, Notice Ownership Update Request Received. I froze. Ownership update, what I clicked in and my stomach dropped. The message said a form had been submitted electronically requesting a change in property ownership on my mortgage record. There was an attachment, A scanned PDF. I opened it and stared at it in complete disbelief. It was a grant deed form, the kind you'd use to transfer part of your home to someone else. And there it was, my name in messy block letters signed at the bottom. But it wasn't my signature. Not even close. I felt this wave of nausea crash over me. I closed the laptop, stood up, paced the kitchen. This wasn't just a bad visit or a manipulative conversation. This was fraud. Someone had forged my name and submitted it to the city office. It hadn't gone through yet, but the fact that it even existed scared the hell out of me. I reopened the file and scanned for clues. Whoever submitted this knew exactly what they were doing. It was formatted correctly. Everything looked official, except, of course, for the fact that it wasn't real. Then a name hit me. Will. Will was my ex. We dated for about a year. Things ended amicably, or so I thought. He was a real estate agent, smart, charming, knew the system inside and out, and more importantly, he helped me through the entire home buying process. I trusted him. I told him everything. What I paid, my loan terms, where I stored my paperwork, even how I signed digitally because I was out of state during escrow. Suddenly, all of that trust felt like a loaded weapon pointed right at me. I grabbed my phone and texted him. "Hey, random question. Did you help anyone access my property file?" No response. 10 minutes, nothing. An hour passed. Still nothing. That's when I knew. He was hiding something. So I called. Straight to voicemail. I didn't even leave a message. I got in my car and drove straight to his office. I knew I was crossing a line, but I didn't care. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about my home. When I walked in, the receptionist smiled, said Will wasn't in today. I asked when he'd be back. She looked confused and said, "Oh, he's been remote all week." Said he was helping a family friend with a deed issue. A deed issue, of course. I left without saying a word. Got back in my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel. The betrayal hit harder than I expected. Not just from him, but from me for letting my guard down, for believing someone wouldn't use my past against me, for assuming people don't change when they're desperate. That night, I combed through every folder, every account, every old message. I changed my passwords, locked down my credit reports, flagged my property with the city for suspicious activity. And I started building a case, screenshots, bank alerts, that fake deed file, every message I'd ever exchanged with Will about the house. Because this wasn't over. It wasn't just about them asking anymore. They were taking, silently, illegally, from the inside, and someone had helped them do it. I didn't have proof yet, but all signs were pointing in the same direction. And if I was right, then this wasn't just family betrayal. This was a setup, and I was their target. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept tossing and turning, replaying everything in my head. Ray, my mom, the forged deed, the silence from Will. It didn't add up. But deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want it to be true. The next morning, I drove back to his office. This time I didn't ask permission. I waited in the parking lot, and sure enough, around 8:30, his silver Tesla pulled in. I stepped out of my car, stood right in his path before he could walk inside. He saw me and froze. "Rachel," he said, trying to smile like nothing was wrong. "Didn't expect to see you." "Cut the crap," I snapped. "We need to talk. Now." He looked around like someone might be watching, then motioned toward the back alley behind the building. We walked in silence. The only sound was my heartbeat thudding in my ears. When we got around the corner, I pulled out my phone and hit record in my pocket. "Tell me the truth," I said. "Did you give them my information?" He hesitated, for just a second. And that second told me everything. "I didn't think it'd be a big deal," he said finally. "Ray said it was just for a legal cleanup. Something about making sure the deed matched their emergency paperwork. He paid me. I didn't think you'd..." I cut him off. "He paid you." How much? Will shifted uncomfortably. A few thousand. I didn't touch your bank info or anything. Just helped them fill out a couple forms. They said you'd still be the main owner, that it wouldn't change anything. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. He had no idea what he'd done. Do you even realize what they were trying to do? They forged my signature, Will. They submitted it to the city. You helped them commit fraud. He blinked, caught off guard. No, I didn't know they were gonna. Actually, I thought it was just. I stepped back. You thought it was just the paperwork. You didn't think at all. He reached out like he wanted to fix it. I pulled away. I trusted you. I left him standing there stammering apologies that didn't matter anymore. Back in my car, I replayed the recording just to make sure I'd gotten everything. Crystal clear. I didn't cry, not yet. I think I was still too stunned. But the moment I walked into my house, everything unraveled. The back door was unlocked, which was strange because I never used the back door. I always keep it bolted from the inside. My stomach turned cold. I stepped in slowly, quietly. The kitchen light was on. My laptop was open on the dining table. That alone might not have meant anything except for the fact that I hadn't left it there. I walked toward it. The screen was still glowing. My property documents were pulled up. Mortgage statements, deed copies, personal notes, scanned IDs. Everything someone would need if they were trying to transfer ownership fast. My file drawer was open too. Half my paperwork pulled out folders tossed around like someone had been digging for gold. And in that moment, it hit me. They'd been inside my home. Not figuratively, literally. Either they broke in, or they got someone to do it for them. And now they had everything they needed. I locked the door, pulled the blinds, sat on the floor in complete silence. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was invasion, violation. This wasn't about reconnecting or family or keeping things legal. That was all a cover, a mask. They wanted my house. They were going to steal it right out from under me. And they weren't done yet. They were just getting started. I didn't sleep that night. Again. I sat in my kitchen staring at the mess on my dining table, my laptop still open, documents half scattered, every drawer left just slightly out of place. And I knew one thing for sure. This was war. So the next morning, I called the only person I knew who could help me fight back. Layla. We met in college back when I was barely scraping by, and she was already dreaming of law school. Now, she was one of the toughest property attorneys in LA Smart. Relentless. No time for drama. I called her and just said, I think someone's trying to steal my house. 10 minutes later, she was at my place with her laptop, a legal pad, and that look in her eyes she gets when someone really screws up. We went over everything. Every file, every fake form, every message I had from Will, the forged PDF, even the recording of him admitting what he did. She listened without interrupting. When I was done, she looked at me and said, Okay, let's burn this down. First thing she did was draft a cease and desist letter, official, aggressive, and very clear. It went straight to my mother and Ray via email and certified mail. Then she helped me submit a fraud alert with the Los Angeles County Recorder's Office. Turns out there was already a request pending, a compassionate transfer of interest form filed under my property. Basically, a loophole designed for family emergencies, terminal illness, caretaking, things like that. They had submitted it as if I had willingly signed it, giving over partial ownership, and they used a fake ID with my name and address but a different photo. They thought they were being clever. Layla wasn't impressed. She flagged the application and submitted evidence to the county fraud unit. Then we filed a formal report with the police. We brought everything, screenshots, emails, voice recordings, security camera timestamps from my back door, and photos of the fake document. The officer at the desk took one look at it all and called for a detective. By that afternoon, I was filing an official criminal complaint. Forgery, attempted property theft, unauthorized access to private files, identity misuse. According to Layla, if this went through the DA's office, which it likely would, both my mother and Ray could be looking at felony charges. Real jail time. 5 years, maybe more. depending on what else they'd touched. The thought made my stomach twist. Not because I felt sorry for them, but because I realized just how far they were willing to go. This wasn't about a bad visit or a family fight. This wasn't about emotions. It was about control. They didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as a resource, a thing to extract value from. And when I said no, they decided to take it anyway. I remember looking at Layla across the table while she typed up one of the affidavits, her fingers moving like fire. And I asked, "Do people really do this to their own family?" She looked up without missing a beat. "All the time. But not everyone fights back. You are." Something about that hit me hard, because for so long I'd been trying to move past my childhood, trying to bury it, outgrow it, outwork it. But now I wasn't running anymore. I was fighting, not just for my house, not just for my name on a deed, but for myself, my peace, my freedom, my life. And I wasn't going to let anyone, especially the people who left me behind, take that away. Not again, not ever. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, just in energy. It felt sterile, unforgiving. No drama, no shouting, no cinematic speeches. Just a process. A system. But even without all that, it was still one of the hardest days of my life. Layla sat beside me at the petitioner's table. Calm, collected, ready. I sat stiff in my chair, hands folded in my lap to hide how badly they were shaking. Across from me on the other side of the courtroom sat my mother and Ray. Ray looked like he hadn't slept, still arrogant but twitchy, uncomfortable in a suit that didn't quite fit. And my mother, she looked polished, hair done, pearl earrings, soft colors, her concerned mother costume. I didn't look at either of them. I just stared straight ahead, heart pounding as the judge walked in. The hearing started. Layla spoke first, laying out the case in clean, deliberate detail: cease and desist, ignored forged documents, digital intrusion, attempted property transfer, my recorded call with Will, the police report, the city fraud alert, all of it. No fluff, just facts. Then it was their turn. My mother stood up slowly, and I swear her voice cracked just enough to sound convincing. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she was desperate, that Ray had pushed her into it, that all she wanted was to reconnect, that this was all just a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. She even said I only wanted my daughter to forgive me, but she never looked at me when she said it. Not once. Then Ray stood up. He didn't bother with fake tears. He went straight for character assassination. "She's an ungrateful child," he said. "We came to her for help. We're family. She turned us away. She's got everything now and left her own mother in the dust." I could feel my jaw clenching, my fists tightening in my lap. But I stayed silent. I didn't need to say anything. The evidence had already spoken for me. When they finished, the judge didn't take long. His face was unreadable, but his words weren't. "This is not a family dispute. This is attempted fraud, property tampering, and identity misuse. You are lucky criminal charges haven't already been filed, but that won't last long." Then, looking directly at my mother and Ray, "You are hereby ordered to have no contact, direct or indirect, with the petitioner. That includes digital, physical, and third-party contact. This restraining order is permanent, and this case is being referred to the district attorney's office for further investigation." That was it. The gavel came down. My hands were still trembling, but my breathing slowed just a little. Ray looked stunned. My mother's face twisted like she wanted to cry, scream, or throw something, but couldn't decide which. They didn't say a word as they stood. They didn't look at me, and I didn't look at them. I just walked out of that courtroom with Layla beside me, my steps shaky but sure. No applause, no big moment, just the quiet weight of relief settling into my chest. I wasn't celebrating, but I was done. And sometimes that's the most powerful victory you can have. After the hearing, everything got quiet, not peaceful, not at first, just quiet in the way grief often is. Like something heavy had been ripped out and now all that was left was space. I thought winning in court would feel like closure, but the truth, it felt more like starting over. I still jumped at small noises, still checked the locks 3 times before bed, still felt that twist in my stomach whenever I saw an email from an unknown sender. So I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I started therapy. Her name was Dr. Torres. She had this calm, steady voice that made it easier to talk, especially about things I hadn't said out loud in over a decade. I told her everything. About my childhood, about Ray, about my mom choosing him over and over, about the knock at my door, the forged documents, the betrayal, and slowly, session by session, I began to peel it all back. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. But somewhere between all those Monday afternoons and sleepless nights, I made a decision. If that house almost got taken from me, if I almost lost everything I built because of where I came from, then maybe I could turn it into something better, something bigger than just square footage and furniture. So I turned my home into a resource. Not a shelter, not a charity, just a space where young women could learn. I hosted free weekend workshops in the living room, laid out folding chairs, got help from Layla and a few friends, and we taught basics financial literacy credit, building how to read a lease, how to understand a paycheck. Real stuff. Stuff I wished someone had taught me when I was 17, scared and broke. I met women, just like me girls, who had been burned by family, pushed out too early, told they were too emotional, or too much. And now, they wanted control over their futures. They showed up. They listened. They asked questions. They cried sometimes, and I cried with them. It was messy, imperfect, but it was real. And for once, my house felt like more than just a fortress I had to protect. It felt like a place that could give something back. Then one day, I got a text from Will. It had been months since the fallout. I figured I'd never hear from him again. But there it was. Hey, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I really am. I stared at that message for a long time. And the truth is, I didn't respond. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I was holding a grudge, but because I'd already made peace with it. I didn't forgive him, not really. What he did was cowardly. It was selfish. But I did forgive myself for trusting him, for not seeing it sooner, for thinking I could handle everything alone. And that forgiveness, that was enough. I don't think healing means pretending it didn't hurt, or that it's okay, or that they didn't try to break you. I think healing is saying you don't get to define me anymore. I took back my name, my space, my story, and for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't scared anymore. A few weeks after the hearing, I hosted a small BBQ in my backyard. Nothing fancy, just burgers, iced tea, fairy lights strung between the fence posts. But for me, it meant everything. Layla brought potato salad. My neighbor Nina showed up with homemade lemonade. A few of the women from the financial workshop came too. Some brought their kids one, even brought a guitar. We laughed. We ate. We talked about nothing and everything. And somewhere between the music and the smell of grilled corn, I realized this was family, not the kind you're born into, the kind that chooses you, the kind that shows up with Tupperware and folding chairs and doesn't care what your last name is or who you used to be or what mistakes you made trusting the wrong people. They see you, they love you for it, and they stay. At one point, Layla raised her glass and said, "To starting over," and I added, "To the family we build." Because I used to think family meant loyalty no matter what. Now I know better. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about safety. It's about who shows up and who tries to take everything you've built. So if you're listening to this and you're carrying guilt over cutting someone out, if they were toxic, manipulative, cruel, or just plain dangerous, you don't owe them access to your life just because they share your DNA. You get to choose who has a seat at your table. And sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is walk away. Not in anger, but in peace. So to anyone out there still navigating the messiness of family, I see you. You're not alone. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who was supposed to love you? Someone who crossed the line and thought forgiveness meant permission? Tell me your story in the comments. I read everyone, and your voice might be exactly what someone else out there needs to hear today. And if this story resonated with you even a little, don't forget to subscribe. We share new real-life drama stories every single day. You never know whose story might change your own.